Good morning from the island of Marathi in the Greek Isles. Hi and welcome to Joy TV. This is Ann Tiffany of EmbodyingJoy.com. And today we are on this beautiful remote island in the middle of the Aegean Sea, where it's such a small island that there are no cars, no scooters, no mopeds, because there are no roads. There's never been a road here. There are only goats and footpaths and a little bit of shoreline on the beach with a couple of buildings. There's now a restaurant, maybe 3 restaurants, a couple of hotels with a few rooms to let, and a dock where sailboats can come in and anchor and more in the harbor. And here it's a place where we see this blend of very ancient traditions and a very old way of life and a very modern lifestyle that brings people in like me on sailboats and goes to the restaurant where we can eat gourmet food, and this incredible blend of old and new. Right here on my left is a whole herd of goats this morning. So if you hear any bells, that is the bells around the goats' necks. And these goats wander around the island freely, and they go to a little enclosure not far from here where they're milked exactly the same way they've been milked for hundreds and hundreds of years. Behind me is a very old church, and on the other side of that is a structure that's disintegrating, but it's supposedly over 2,000 years old, a place where things were stored, maybe water stored. And we're at the top of this part of the island where you can see a long ways and see ships or see boats coming from a great distance across the sea. So it's a place where I feel very connected to a very old way of life, and yet experiencing the very modern conveniences of technology and what it's brought. And last night we were out on the dock and another boatload came in, and it was a boatload of young women, mostly women. They happened to all be from Jordan, and it was part of a ecological preservation foundation of some kind, where there's an organization that is going from island to island, and they're involving young people in preserving the wildlife, the habitat, the ecology of this beautiful archipelago of islands. And it just got me thinking how amazing it is that not long ago on this island, the island was all people knew, really. They weren't traveling anywhere. They had a very much smaller sense of identity, of who they were and who their family was and how they identified themselves. And how rapidly things have shifted, where there's boatloads of people, like myself from America, and the young girls from Jordan, and people from all over the world that I've met on this little island. There's not many of us, but it's been a global group. And how we have so much more awareness now of ourselves as global citizens and citizens of the world, and what that means. And what it really struck me is what we're seeing here on the island is evolution of the physical structures of humanity and of life. We've got ancient rock walls and structures that date back hundreds, if not thousands of years. We've got goats that haven't changed at all since who knows when. And then down below there's a little structure with a satellite dish on top and a Wi-Fi. And we can see the physical evidence of evolution in action. But what's not so readily apparent is the evolution of consciousness that's happening everywhere, whether we are aware of it or not. And simply, these girls on the boat were just such a symbol to me of how our identity is changing as humans. And these young women on the boat, they're from a country that's not Greece, they're not from here, and yet they are so aware of how we are all interconnected with the environment, with this planet, with each other, and it's in our best interest to do the little things that make a difference, to make our planet more sustainable and to make our actions more conscious, so that what we do leaves less of a footprint and leaves the earth in a better position for our next generation than we found it. And this type of broad thinking is the evolution of consciousness in action. No more are we just identifying with little tribes and villages, but we're thinking of ourselves as global citizens. We're part of an interconnected web. We are a family of humanity on this beautiful planet that's spinning through space. And that evolution of consciousness is driving us in every moment to think about our lives differently and think about the world differently and our place in the world and how do we fit in and what does it mean to be part of a larger whole, and what does that really mean for our specific lives and the little choices that we make every day. And that's where our relationship with joy really does guide us as a compass, because there's this flow of evolution that's happening, whether we like it or not, whether we resist it or not. Evolution just is, and things are changing. We see it in our technology, we see it in every aspect of our life. It's changing always. The nature of life is change, and we can either be resisting change or we can be going with the flow. And there might be things that we don't like, but those are the clues that that's somewhere that we can do something about it. And so it's worth just looking at the areas of life in general where you're resisting change, because this is a direct barometer of your relationship with joy. And if you are opposing change and you're resisting the evolution, you'll never experience joy. Because evolution is just the way of existence. We're in an expanding universe and it's always changing. And I know for me, when I first started this journey, I remember thinking to myself, I hate change. I hate change, because change was scary. Change was unfamiliar. Change was unknown. And there was a part of me that did not want things to change. I just wanted everything to stay the same. And that was also a period of my life, not coincidentally, that I was miserable. I was not happy on a daily basis. And so over time, it's become this evolution of the self to become more resilient and able to go with the flow and to trust that evolution is bringing something more beautiful. And so this is our challenge when we are wanting to live lives of greater joy and inner peace, is to find the viewpoint that helps us see possibility instead of just problem and catastrophe, and to see the broader picture, to be open to new perspectives of how something beautiful might be emerging, even when what we're seeing is something that we don't want. And so I just invite all of us to look at all the areas in which you might be resisting change. It could be something specific in your life. It could be something that you read about in the news. But the areas in which you look around and you see something changing and you go, I don't like it. This really ticks me off. This makes me so mad. Or just feeling sad, or feeling, some emotion that's not joy. That is like your springboard, your catapult to launch you to something new that you've never thought of before. So as an example, let's say that you are passionate about the historic sites or something, and there's nobody preserving this site. This is a very broad, general, generic example, but if you get annoyed and irritated that nothing is being done and people should be doing something different, that's a sign, an indicator that there's something inside you that has the capacity to make a difference on that very issue. For some people it's, health or medicine or the medical system or the financial system, or, there's something wrong with politics. There's these broad categories where people tend to be very resistant to change or resistant to what's happening, and then you surround yourself with other people who also oppose what's happening, and everybody grumbles about what's wrong and how it should be different, and you end up with this huge pool of negativity and grumbling, which is fine to a point that it stirs up the emotional charge. But at some point you have to shift your focus and say, okay, yes, this sucks, this is not right, this is a problem, what can I do about it? And this is the journey of stepping into your own power, of discovering that your voice matters. The reason you feel so upset about it, the reason you feel pissed off about it, is because you have a voice that matters and you can do something about it. You can make a difference. You don't have to know right now what or how, but your job is simply to look for how can I be a part of the solution instead of the problem. And that shift is so simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. It's the pivot to go, wow, there's a problem. I want to be a part of the solution. And then you start looking for ideas. You know, what is it that I could do? Where could I make a difference? How could little old me, and that's where you start bumping into all those voices in your head that say, I don't know, who could I make a difference? I don't know, who am I to think I could, blah, blah, blah. All of that garbage that keeps you in a disempowered state of smallness and dimming your light and not even seeing how amazing you are, how incredible you are. And so using the larger issue as a springboard to say, how can I help? How can I make a difference? And it might be as simple as, you know, one baby step of making a donation to a cause that supports the issue that you're passionate about. Or it might be as simple as doing research on some solution and sharing the word, you know, telling somebody about it, shooting a video. You could start your own YouTube channel. Look, it's easy. In this day and age, we all have the power to make a difference more than ever before in the world. And this is part of the modern miracle of technology. So anyway, all of this is just to say you matter, your voice matters, and the more you can be a part of the solution and be a part of looking for possibilities and looking for what is possibly good out of whatever you're facing, is you can shift your mindset and shift your perspective. You become this person that goes with the flow more easily and goes with the tide of evolution and goes with the flow of inevitability of whatever is unfolding, and you can co-create a more beautiful solution to whatever the problems are that you're facing in your specific life or in the world by becoming a solution-oriented person. And just going with the flow of evolution is where you experience the most joy, because life is unfolding how it's going to unfold. And when you're going with the flow, it feels beautiful. When you're not, it's not. So thank you so much for joining me here on the beautiful island of Marathi, and just let this beautiful ancient scenery behind be a reminder that the old is there to spark us to new horizons and to be part of the leading edge of evolution and to go forward willingly into the unknown where new solutions and new possibilities can emerge. Your voice matters, you matter. You make a difference just with everything you focus on and everything you choose to give your attention to. So make your choice based on feeling more joy, and you'll discover that pretty soon you're making a bigger difference in the world than you ever dreamed. Have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for joining me on Joy TV. We'll see you next time. Bye.